welcome back to Cooking with Bill. We're going to do a real quick entree, something that you've probably had lots of times, especially if you're from the South. We'd like to make meatloaf. Pretty simple thing to put together. Got a couple different meats, and you can choose what kind of meat you like. We're going to do some onions, some celery, a little bit of garlic, salt, pepper. Pretty much that's it. Put it together with a little bit of panko, and you're ready to rock and roll. So we're going to start this out. We're going to take some onions. If you haven't seen us do this, we're going to go ahead and take them, and we're kind of cutting them right down the center of the onion. It's to give us a base so that we can dice these things up. And again, if you don't like doing it this way and you have a little food processor, you can do it that way, or you can just chop it the way you've always been chopping. But this way you end up with a lot of nice uniform pieces of onion. I'm using red onion for this tonight. And we're going to do the same with this one. And that's all it is to do an onions. I'll do the other one in just a couple minutes. Now for celery, same thing for celery. You're just going to take it, you're going to slice it down, make these into strips. Don't worry about whether you have some of the celery stems on it that have all the flowers. You'll use those as well. And again, you're just trying to make it somewhat uniform so that when you come in here and you start dicing this, they're all going to be about the same size, and so everything cooks really evenly. Just line them up and just start chopping. Now make sure you keep your fingers curled, because you don't want to take your fingers or fingernails off. Now I recommend, it doesn't matter whether you have a really good knife or not, you know, whether you got one at local convenience store, or whether you got one from your grandparents, or got something at a yard sale, or you went out and spent some serious money on like a Wusthof or a Hinkle or something like that. But the important thing is to keep it sharp. The reason I say that is you tend to cut wrong when you have a dull knife. So if you have a knife and it's really dull, you start hacking at stuff and you don't pay attention to how you're cutting. You'll end up cutting your fingers, and that could be a bad thing, because then you have to go to the hospital and you're not getting your stuff cooked. So as you can see, anytime I'm working around these knives, I am curling my fingertips. I curl them under, and that way I am assured that I'm running across the top knuckle with the main part of the knife, and the bottom part of the knife is nowhere close to my fingertips. This knife is super sharp. This is a Wusthof knife, and it would take me all the way to the bone if I allowed it. My dogs are walking around, if you see them in the picture, because they want to eat as well. So there, we got celery. I did, probably 3 or 4 stems. I'm going to do a second onion, but I'm not going to bore you with that. And then I'm going to do some garlic. Now garlic is pretty simple. You press it down, you get the outer husk off of it. Now you can also buy garlic already pre-cleaned and even minced in the store. So it all depends on how much work you want to put into it. Now the way I typically will take this outer shell off, I just sit there and push it once, and the whole shell comes off, peels off just like that. Now if you're going to do a soup or stew, you can just throw that in. You don't even have to chop it up. For doing this, we're going to want to dice this stuff up. And so I'm going to break open a couple of these, and then I'm going to do a fine dice. Okay, so very simple. And again, keeping your fingers out of the way. Now if you want to, you can take that and go the other direction on it, just to give it a different chop if you want a little bit finer. But that's about all you're going to do. So I'm doing about 4 cloves of garlic in this, just to give it that nice flavor. Okay, so now we're going to assemble all this. So we've got our diced up vegetables here. Now I'm going to be using some ground beef. I get some organic ground beef, but you could use chuck, you could use whatever you want to use. Some people put a brisket in there as well. Yep, you've seen my things for brisket. So you could use a little bit of beef, a little bit of brisket if you wanted to. I'm using turkey with mine. Some people like to use lamb or veal. So it all depends on how you like yours together. But we're just going to use two things. We're going to use the turkey. So I'm putting in about 1.5 pounds of turkey. Again, this is a big meal. And I'm taking about 1.5 pounds of beef. Pretty simple so far, yeah? And then we're going to take and put in our onions and our celery and our garlic. I'm going to take some pepper. Now again, you can do this to taste, so whatever works for you. You can use some of that McCormick's steak rub if you like that. Now I'm going to put in a liberal amount of salt because it's a lot of meat. So in this I'm going to put a little ketchup, and I'm probably putting in about 1/2 cup of ketchup in here. I'm going to put in 2 eggs. Now, if you don't know how to break eggs, do it in a bowl, because if you don't do it right, you'll end up with eggshells in your mix. A couple other things I'm going to add. I've got this horseradish mustard. It's going to give it just a little bit of a kick. So I'm putting in about 1/4 cup. Again, I'm eyeballing all this. Now the last thing I might want to put in, I'm going to put in a little bit of mushrooms into mine. Now some people don't put mushrooms in, but I'm going to take just a little bit of mushrooms. I'm just going to quickly do a chop on these, just to make them a little smaller than full mushrooms. If you're trying to hide vegetables, to get your kids to eat vegetables, a meatloaf is actually a really good thing to do that with, because you could sit there and put kale in here, you could put spinach in here, you could put carrots in here, you could do beets, all sorts of things that you could add into this, because that meat and all the things that we're putting together are going to really absorb all that, and it's going to just have one flavor. So if you're trying to get your kids or your significant other spouses to eat vegetables and they don't like them, put them in a meatloaf. It works quite well. Okay, so the last thing we're going to put in is about 2 cups of panko bread flour. These are bread crumbs. Now you can also get them flavored. You can also get gluten-free. So always think about the alternatives that you have for this. We'll add some salt and pepper. We've already got garlic and onions in there. It's going to be very flavorful. Now I'm going to mix this up first, then we'll come back and I'll show you what we do next. Okay, so the last thing I've done, I've taken it out of the bowl. Now again, put the panko breadcrumbs in it, mixed it all up with my hands. I put down some bacon down on this aluminum foil, and then formed 2 loaves, okay? Wrap the bacon around it, that'll give it some extra flavor. Now if you want to do these in pans, you could put a little bit of bacon drippings in the pan, or you could even line the pan with bacon if you'd want to. I want to get this a good smoke, okay? So we're going to put this on the smoker at 250 for about 3 hours. We'll be checking it at about 150 degrees. I'm going to put a glaze on it, and then after that we'll go ahead and show you what it looks like. So I'm going to go wash my hands, get them all cleaned up. In the previous video that I did, I had a friend actually say, hey, we saw you working with chicken and fish, never saw you clean your hands. Very important when you touch raw meat, no matter what kind, you wash your hands. Now in that particular video I was out on the porch, so I was using Clorox wipes in between. You didn't see it on camera, but I'm going to go wash my hands now, take these out to the smoker and get them going. So I hope you're enjoying this. We'll be back in just a bit. Okay, so meatloaf was on the grill, well, on the smoker, for about 3 hours at about 150 degrees or so. We put on a mixture of ketchup, honey, a little bit of tomato paste, and we mixed that up and put that over as a glaze across this. So this is what we ended up with. It's a nice loaf. We have 2 of them, of course. And so we're going to cut this thing open and let you see what it looks like. So you can see how moist that is. It's got a real nice color to it. Excellent smoke. Now you can taste the onions. You can taste the spices we put into it, the horseradish. Makes a wonderful meatloaf. So this is a real nice way to make something. Since you're making multiple loaves, you can freeze one, keep it for later. I'd probably put some corn with this, maybe some mashed cauliflower or mashed potatoes if you're still doing starch. Maybe a little asparagus on the side, a little broccoli, something like that to round it out. Now, if you like what you've been watching, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell so you can get told when I have new videos out for you to watch. Tell your friends about it. If you're on Facebook, you can like it. Give me things you'd like to have me cook. I'll be glad to try them on air and give you some recipes for it. Thanks for coming to Cooking with Bill, and we'll see you back here in the kitchen.